The Republican Party's current frontrunner, Donald Trump, ditched the GOP's first official primary debate to instead be interviewed by Tucker Carlson. And amidst all the weird and dishonest things that Trump said, one of the most interesting tangents was when Tucker asked him about the prospects of a future second American Civil War. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so just real quick, last night was the official primary debate, the first primary debate of the Republican Party, and Donald Trump, the frontrunner of the GOP, was not there. Now, he's been signaling for months that he probably wouldn't participate, and despite his malignant narcissism and his stupidity and his corruption, all the things which make him a terrible leader and a terrible person in general, this was a rare moment of lizard brain calculus and low cunning, because to Donald Trump, there's no benefit to participating in the first official primary debate. He is leading the next, his next rival by a comfortable multiple double-digit lead, okay? And he's up against, seasoned debaters who probably at every single level have more policy knowledge, and with the exception of Vivek Ramaswamy, at least experience, than Trump himself. So there was no benefit and only a potential risk. So instead, what he did is he scheduled an interview with Tucker Carlson, which would help divert attention away from the Republican primary. Smart move. And he's also intending sometime today to surrender himself to Fulton County, Georgia authorities, which will further dilute whatever impact the GOP first official primary debate had, positively or negatively, I suppose, on any of the candidates. So again, he's sandbagging them left, right, and center, and it's hilarious. But during the interview with Tucker Carlson, Trump said, again, predictably, a lot of weird and dishonest things. But the most interesting thing to me was the last question of the interview, in which Tucker asked Trump about the potential for a second American Civil War. Now, we're going to play some clips here. They're going to be at like 1.25 or 1.5 speed because I don't want this to be a 40-minute thing. But let's hear the question, and then we will unpack it together.
And legally.
Do you think we're moving towards civil war?
There's tremendous passion and there's tremendous love. January 6th was a very interesting day because they don't report it properly. I believe it was the largest crowd I've ever spoken before, and some of the crowds I've spoken before. And like July 4th on the mall, I think they had 1 million people there. But I think that...
He's so Freudian, by the way. Again, it's all about size to him. The size of his hands, the size of his crowds, the size of his tie. I mean, it's all... This man has like some sort of strange juvenile Freudian complex that he has never quite grasped. It's so funny, so bizarre. Continue, Donnie.
The biggest crowd I've ever spoken before was on January 6th, and people that were in that crowd, a very, very small group of people, and we said patriotically and peacefully and patriotically, right? Nobody ever says that. Go peacefully and patriotically. But people that were in that crowd that day, very small group of people went down there, and then there are a lot of scenarios that we can talk about. But people in that crowd said it was the most beautiful day they've ever experienced. There was love in that crowd. There was love and unity.
Love and unity. Love and unity. Okay, before we go any further, I think it's important to, it's important really for all of us to feel love and unity. Those are really important values. So I thought I would remind everybody of the love and unity that occurred on January 6th. It is truly breathtaking. Brace yourselves.
We have a breach of the Capitol! Breach of the Capitol! We need to hold the doors of the Capitol! I need court support!
So I hope you had your tissues ready. I hope that, it was basically like watching a Hallmark movie, right? That was straight out of a Hallmark movie. Did you see how the crowd lovingly chanted that they wanted to hang Donald Trump's then vice president, a Republican? How they lovingly slammed police officers' heads into walls? How they lovingly and, in unity bashed windows, broke windows, invaded the Capitol, and how they were lovingly screaming, all kinds of invective and things like that. Again, very strange assessment of what happened on January 6th, but not entirely surprising because Donald Trump and his surrogates have been trying to downplay that event and its implications for the Democratic Republic that is the United States for years. But anyway, just wanted to, I wanted to bring some love to you, remind you all of the love that Donald Trump was talking about. But let's get to the rest of his answer.
I have never seen such spirit and such passion and such love. And I've also never seen simultaneously and from the same people such hatred of what they've done to our country.
So do you think it's possible that there's open conflict? We seem to be moving towards something.
I don't know, because I don't know what it, I can say this. There's a level of passion that I've never seen. There's a level of hatred that I've never seen, and that's probably a bad combination.
So what's interesting about this answer, a couple of things. Number one is how he misrepresents what happened on January 6th, but also kind of tacitly also indicates that his own supporters have a tremendous level of hatred. Okay. Now, notice how he frames it. He's like, hatred for what they, being the left, being Democrats, being the deep state, being, crooked Joe Biden and his campaign, the rhinos, what they have done to our country, right? So he's trying to make excuses for it. But it's the closest thing that Trump has ever come to acknowledging that his party is also one with a tremendous strain of hatred behind it, okay? It was like a fleeting moment of honesty in an otherwise incredibly dishonest and vapid response. Now, I'll also remind you that when it comes to MAGA, when it comes to election deniers, when it comes to Trump supporters, when it comes to the right in general relative to the left, there's some pretty sobering statistics and facts to consider. Now, first things first. Violence is not unique to the right. The right did not create violence. The right does not have a monopoly on violence. But we're not going to indulge in false equivalence here. So the fact of the matter is that in terms of domestic terrorism, the danger is much more overrepresented from the right than the left. There's much greater danger in terms of lives lost and the lengths to which domestic terrorists will go on the right compared to the left. And anyone who tries to equivocate between the two is either ignorant or a liar. Just getting back to it. In the aftermath of Donald Trump's defeat by President Biden, nearly 40% of Trump-loving election deniers said that violence might be necessary to reclaim the country, to save the country. To save the country, believe me, nobody knows how to save the country better than me, believe me. 39% of MAGA-supporting Trump lovers who thought the election was stolen say that violence might be necessary to take it back. Now, I'll remind you that support for the notion that the 2020 election was stolen has ebbed and flowed over time, but now it's back up to basically where it was in the aftermath of the 2020 election. 70% of Republicans say that Joe Biden did not win the 2020 election. So 40% of that cohort apparently believe that it's okay, that violence might not only okay, it might be necessary to save the country. But it goes beyond that still. So in the aftermath of Trump's many indictments and him entering the 2024 race, Trump allies or Trump supporters on social media have been hurling out all kinds of calls to violence, calls to action. We need to start killing. Trump's far-right supporters are threatening civil war within minutes of Trump's indictment. Supporters lit up social media platforms with various threats and calls for civil war. I think that was his second indictment. It was on June 9th, so I think, it was the second indictment, the first one by Jack Smith for the willful retention of national defense information. We need to start killing these traitorous F-stains, wrote one Trump supporter on the Donald, a rabidly pro-Trump message board that played a key role in planning the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Another user added, "We're not going to stop until bodies start stacking up. We are not civilly represented anymore, and they'll come for us next. Some of us, they already have." And it goes on and on and on, this article. A little bit about Merrick Garland, his wife, and his daughters. A user shared a link to an article about the Attorney General's children. And here's where it gets even more deranged. Under the post, another user replied, "His children are fair game as far as I'm concerned." Folks, and it goes on and on. Mehdi Hassan played a clip of, it was in the aftermath of another indictment. It may have been the same indictment or it may have been one of the others. So many, we're losing track. But a Trump supporter was asked at a New Hampshire rally for Trump, "Hey, look, if Donald Trump were to be found guilty by a jury, where do you see this going?" Vaughn Hilliard, who's an NBC News correspondent, asked this Trump supporter in a Trump 2024 shirt. Brace yourselves for her answer. "Civil war," the woman responded. because we can't live together, obviously. Now, we could belabor the point, but the point is simply this in summation. This was, again, a generally dishonest response from Donald Trump that also offered no accountability, no culpability, no introspection about what got us here. But there was a fleeting moment of honesty within where he identified that his movement has a very powerful strain of hatred. Now, it's predicated on facts, not in evidence. It's predicated on lies, right? This idea that the deep state, the rhinos, the Democrats, they still, right? So it's hatred based on lies, but it is hatred all the same. And I don't see it going away anytime soon, right? Especially with, you will see, if you watch the first official Republican primary debate, which again occurred about the same time that this Tucker Carlson interview with Donald Trump occurred last night. Donald Trump, even in absentia, even in absence, Donald Trump's shadow looms large. And he'll be happy about that because I said the word large, and he's very size-oriented, very Freudian. It looms large over the GOP. It is an authoritarian cult of personality. We played, we showed results of a poll just a couple of days ago, which says that in terms of Republicans who apparently value the truth, so they say, Donald Trump is the candidate that they support the most. So if you value truth, you support Trump. That's the Republican logic, which of course is deranged given that he is a pathologically lying, malignant narcissist who I think in his first term in office, the Washington Post fact-checked, it was like 37,000 documented lies in 4 years. But then there was another part of that poll which said that they trust Trump to tell them the truth more than friends and family, conservative thought leaders, and religious leaders. It is a cult, and he has a stranglehold on it. So anyway, I just thought for various reasons that remark was very interesting. I don't know personally what the prospects are of a second American Civil War, given that the world has changed so much. The technological landscape, the political landscape, the number of states in the union. I mean, things are just so different now. But even if it's a relatively small chance, the fact that that chance is greater than it was pre-Trump is something that should worry any and all of us.